Close meeting order. We'll start off with the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Here. 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 Here.
Present. Here. Approval of the agenda. Motion.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All approved? Disapproved? Minutes to be approved. Motion. Second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, presentation. Excuse me.
Good evening. I updated the budget and it should be the 23rd. There's one on there for the 23rd. Maybe, would you go to the first slide and see what the first slide is? Okay, all right. This is a change in the expenditures and also in the revenue. The expenditures came down, is now at 132,764,951. The revenue came down because of the change in salaries. Needed to remove the half of the revenue from the state for both the Social Security and also the retirement. They will not be paying a salary reduction. The PSERS that we are going to be submitting to the state is reducing, so the amount of money that they will return to us is coming down also. So we're at a budget gap of $2.1 million. Next slide, please. In looking at this, we have the total amount of $132,764,951. The salaries and benefits are the two items that change the most. We are at salaries at $64.5 million, employee benefits at 25.6 approximately, professional technical services at 7.1, purchase property services at 3.4, other purchase services at almost 8.5, general supplies at 4.3 million, capital outlay at under 900,000, other interest expense at 9.2 million, debt service has not changed at 8.8, almost 8.9 million, and then budgetary reserve at 400,000. And you can see in the next column that says net change, you see significant changes from budgetary reserve from last year, 600,000, debt service at 1.6, almost 1.7, other and interest expense at 1.2, almost 1.3, and then general supplies came down at 633,000. Other purchase services of 1.6 increase, and purchase property services of 44,000 decrease, and the other increases you see there. The total budget is up 0.94%, which is less than 1% from last year.
Can I just ask the
Sure.
other purchase services that's up 25%, what is that attributed?
The part of that is that transportation from the IU. Those increases there that would be outside purchase services, the 500 series, that is that dollar amount there. Okay, question? Budget and actual history, the next one. I went back to 2006, 2007, and you're seeing the revenues there, expenditures and fund balance. Back in 2006-07, the revenues, and in this case, it's an actual number. The 2006-07, 2007-08, the 8-9, and the 9-10, those are all actual numbers. You see it went from 110,757,000 to 113.8, 121.2, 123, almost 127 million, jumping then to 129.8 for the current year revenues and 130.6 million for revenues for the current budget. Expenditures going then from 113 million back in 2006-07 to the current year 132.8 million. So, and you can see the fund balance over there on the all the way on the right hand side at 35 million in 2006-07, and each year it's coming down, and the current year is projected to be 21 million at the end of 2011, 2012. So, next, please. We purchased the PFM budget model last year, and this is where we were on December 21st, 2010. The red line is the expenditures, the blue line is the revenues. On December 21st, we were at 141 million for the budget, 141, almost 142 million for expenditures, and the revenues was 127 million. If you go to the next one, the revenues is at 130 million, and the expenditures are there at 132 million. So looking at that, you can see the 2012 about approximately in the middle of the screen. That's where we're at today, just a budget gap of a little bit over $2 million. But when you get out to 2018, that budget gap there for the June, that particular one is at a $19.6 million budget gap. So do you want to go back and look at the one prior and see where we were at that one? We were at almost $190 million for revenues, but considering that we have salary freezes and other cuts in expenditures, we've trimmed the budget significantly since December 21st. Questions? This is the millage and tax impact. 2009-10, Bucks was at 155.277. This next year will be at 161.211, which is actually a decrease of 1.173 mils, less than 1% decrease, tax impact of 117.30 cents reduction, and this is based on $100,000 assessment of homes. In Northampton at 51.122 for 09-10, and for next year will be at 53.247, which is actually a 1.7% increase, and that would be a $92.20 impact. Questions? Okay. My next slide is the piggy bank there, asking for questions. So, any questions?
Has there been any news on changes in revenue from the state?
No, there has not been. They are still debating, and they expect to have that because they have a deadline of June 30th, just like the school district. Questions? I had some questions last time at the meeting. I don't know if you want me to go over those questions.
Please do.
I'll need to come here.
Can I just follow up with one question? So with no news from the state, does our current budget assume the worst-case scenario
Yes, it
as
does.
proposed? So anything in addition?
Correct. Anything in addition would benefit revenues and cut that budget gap. We don't know. We have no idea what they're going to do. They could increase revenues from the state, or they could keep it flat. We don't know. You asked me about the tuition reimbursement. That was trimmed from the budget. I did verify that. And then we have the question from Mrs. Ellison regarding general supplies. Dr. Duffy's presentation had a dollar amount on it in a certain area. I had actually put it in the budget in a different area. We moved it to match his budget presentation, and that's why that is. Yeah.
Okay.
But those monies would be available at schools if they needed to be spent at schools. He would just transfer those monies, budget-wise.
Okay.
Okay? Budget changes cannot take place until after October 1st.
Right.
So they assume that when you do your budget that you, at least for the first 3 months, would have a budget that was suitable. So typically what happens is you record your expenditures in the account that they need to go to, and then if you're overspent, then you transfer the money from one account to the other. There was a change in regular clerical amounts in the 2340, 2360, and 2361. And that was on page 45. I took a look at that, the 18,026.7 and just under 18,000. I came back and verified salaries with a spreadsheet from current employees. And so the information that I had was way back in October or November, so I came back and changed them to reflect where they were actually being charged to.
Okay.
All right? And then the miscellaneous purchases, that was account 2990. That was IU cost that we have. And I did provide a spreadsheet to the board. I can give you another copy of that if you'd like to have that.
No, that's okay. I just
Okay.
wasn't quite sure if that's what that was attributed to.
Yes.
Because it's only identified as miscellaneous.
Yes. The 131, 111, and 121 within the athletic salaries, they are actually what we did talk about, administrative and office personnel, and then the rest of them are coaches. Okay, the
Okay.
131 are all coaches.
They are all
Yes,
coaches.
yes, they are. And then the miscellaneous expenditures in the 3390, and that's at 890 object, that is that senior citizen tax rebate. The 3300 series is community service, and so we increased it from 350,000 to 375, and then with the results of the report, we actually increased it further to 400,000.
Okay.
Okay, that was the questions that we had from last time. I don't know if you have additional questions.
I think my only question right now to date is, I mean, I understand where we've saved a significant amount of money with changes in contracts,
Yes,
and that's the big portion.
absolutely.
I haven't heard much about program reduction or, the deletion of programs. So is part of this budget change anything to do with programs that you have now taken out of the budget? Or
We have really not taken programs out of the budget. We are currently working on life skills. That program coming to the school district, however, that's not finalized yet. And we're also looking at transportation from the IU, whether we district can take back some of that from the IU. We are working on that,
okay.
yeah. Other questions?
No other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to item 5, interested citizens on agenda items only. If you please go up, sign up the mic and speak if you wish to speak on agenda items.
Thank you. My name is Kurt Ely, and I'm live at 305 West Monroe in College Hill. On the agenda is a tabled item from the prior meeting regarding engineering services for the district, and I wanted to take a moment to just ask that the board pause in their evaluation of this process and their voting in this process. I'm very concerned about the process that led to the recommendation of DeHuey Engineering for the engineering contractor for upcoming engineering services contract for the district. I believe that it is absolutely the case that recommendations made to the Building and Grounds Committee in this regard by district administration and staff were both biased and that the evaluation process was flawed. And I'm also very concerned about the entire process of using a retainer approach for paying for fees for these engineering services. I believe that that is an incredibly expensive approach, and I believe that it leaves the district open to a series of overcharges, double charges. I believe we've heard about that and seen that in the past, and I'm greatly concerned about that. I believe that there's the possibility that there were other bids and offers that were received from engineering firms that could have been much more economical, and I'm very, very concerned about the process, and I ask that an evaluation of that process be made and that you please do not, based upon what I believe are serious concerns here, I ask that you not take that vote this evening until there's been an opportunity for this to be properly evaluated. Thank you.
Nobody else has any comment? Okay. We can talk about that when we get to that point, if anybody has any discussion on that. There's definitely some flaws in that statement. All right, let's move on to reports. PTA report. Jill?
Good evening. Another school year is done, and congratulations to the class of 2011. The PTA also wants to take this opportunity to thank Ms. Guidry and Mr. Kish for their service to the district. Mr. Kish has long been a supporter of PTA and has helped us out on numerous occasions. Thank you. While we finished the school year with many activities, including year-end picnics and send-offs, I would say the highlight for the last month was the scholarship ceremony. Beginning this year in an effort to reduce our own expenses and use more money on students, we partnered with the Academic Excellence Awards at the high school. It was a great partnership for both sides. The shared cost reduced our expense and the school district's expense. It was great for both of us. I think the high school appreciated what we brought to the table, and I mean that literally, because we provided tablecloths in addition to other items. But it was a very positive evening, highlighting so many of our high-achieving students. And I would have to say, personally, I was so impressed by the teachers who were recognized by the students they inspired. It was a great evening, and the PTAs were happy to participate, and I think we gave out 16 scholarships, but I forgot to count before I came, something like that. I also want to take a moment tonight to address some comments that were raised at the last regularly scheduled board meeting during association reports. There were some concerns regarding the PTA's use of buses, and I'm not used to coming to these meetings and hearing PTA portrayed in a negative light, so I really feel I have to comment. PTAs do get a break on school district buses, and we really appreciate that. But there are rules we have to follow in regard to those buses, including when they have to be back at the school, and that doesn't always work for our trips. I know there are a few extra buses, but those are usually reserved for sports. In addition, we're aware that as you've tried to balance a budget in this district, you've reduced the rate of bus replacement, which takes a toll on the buses. And I know even one recent field trip had an issue with overheated buses, and we don't take this use lightly. So while we have nothing but the utmost respect for our bus drivers and are happy to provide them with extra income when we can, we ultimately have to make the right decision for the students. If a PTA has funds and chooses to send students on a trip further away, but still within the 75 miles where our buses can go, doesn't mean still using our buses is the right decision. And really, do you want to be the chaperone on a bus of a whole busload of second graders stuck in traffic on the Schuylkill with no bathroom? So, we're going to continue to make the right decisions for the students. And in terms of the comment that you should never approve a field trip where we're not using school buses, let me remind you that every time we do choose to go with an outside company, and we do so because of time and distance, not only are we saving the school district money because you do give us a break, we're also saving you wear and tear on the buses. So I'm assuming what bus we use would not go into that decision. The PTA also wants to comment on one item on the agenda tonight, not the one you're going to think, but the Sodexo price increase. And I think there are a couple of things that's really important you clarified tonight. And the first is that you're required to do this. I know a lot of people are going to complain, and can't you save money by reducing rates in the cafeteria? But you don't have a choice. I mean, this is a government mandate. And I think when you discuss that, if there is discussion, you should make that clear to people. You don't have any choice. You have to raise that, and you probably have to raise it every year until you hit the federal limit. But the other important thing to discuss is what are you going to do with the extra money? Because I don't think the current program necessarily needs it. And we're very pleased that Sodexo and Mr. Kish's office has enlisted the help of students and parents and teachers and other employees to try to find ways to improve cafeteria service, which is certainly some of the places where this money can go. And we've been happy to provide feedback. Some of the things we've asked for more fresh food choices, and we're excited there's going to be a made-to-order salad bar in the middle school. There's currently one in the high school. We've asked for other things as well, such as being a little bit more lenient on the waste at the end of the day so that the last lunch period doesn't constantly run out of the popular choices. And these are some opportunities that will be available to the district as well. But I certainly excuse me, I got a cold. I encourage you to make sure, where the money is going. But we as the PTAs have had nothing but positive experiences with Sodexo, and we've used them for many of our own activities, from Founder's Day dinner to grade level picnics. It's always been a positive experience. So thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you. Superintendent report.
Last night we had our graduation, and it was a wonderful event. So I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the administration and all district staff and our students for an outstanding graduation ceremony, and in addition to the academics and award ceremony. Both of these events were highlights for our students, and we are very proud of the successes that they have done so far. We also wish the class of 2008 great success in their future endeavors. On another note, we have one board member, Sarah Bellotti, that has resigned, so I would like to take this opportunity to thank her for her time that she has served on our board. We wish her well. We have 2 retirements this year, as they have been stated, Mr. Kish and Ms. Goodry. I would like to thank both of them for their years of service. Mr. Kish spent many years, obviously, in our district, so I would like to thank him, and Ms. Goodry for your time in our district. We wish you well, good health, and happiness. And I would like to present you both with an award for outstanding service and education for your service. Thank you.
Ms. Guidry.
Yes. Tonight I want to talk about the Employee Safety and Wellness Report. The district again has received Pennsylvania certification for the Safety Committee. This provides for a 5% discount in our premium for our workers' comp. That dollar amount is about $673,000, so 5% is significant for the district. Because of that certification, there's also not a 5% penalty. So the amount is actually, that we're saving is actually 10%. 5% penalty and then 5% discount. So we meet the third Wednesday of the month, and the schedule and all minutes are located on the Wellness and Safety link on the district's website. On August 11th and August 18th, there will be safety training for the bus drivers. It's titled What to Do If. This will address emergency and safety issues the drivers may need to address, and Suburban EMS will be providing the 45-minute session at no cost to the district, which is a wonderful thing. For the month of March, there were 10 workers' compensation claims filed, 4 record only, 6 medical, and no lost wage claims. Again, slips and falls are the #1 accident in the district. There also were 3 struck by student during the month. Striking against an object, 1, caught in or between machinery, 1, strain or lift or injury by lifting, and a miscellaneous claim also. So struck by student is #2, and like I said, slips and falls is #1. Other than that, I don't have anything else. Thank you.
Solicitor.
I have no report, but thank you for allowing me to sit in John's absence.
You're welcome. Association reports.
Yes. I am going to bite my tongue on the PTA's comments up here. That's something that we will hash out in private, if that's okay with you. However, I would like to say thank you to Mr. Kish and Ms. Skidrick for all of their service. And believe it or not, I learned something from Mr. Kish. Okay, way back when, he told me, it's going to be nice, to always learn at least one thing about everybody you come in contact with. And to this day, I take those words seriously, okay, and I try my best to do that. And on a lighter note, about 6 years ago, was it 6 years ago, the bus drivers almost went on strike. And they called Mr. Kish and I down here on a Sunday morning. Mr. Kish showed up in he's going out fishing, so he had all his fishing gear, the hat and all on, okay? But they had to get a picture of he and I shaking hands, okay, that the public knew we weren't going on strike. So once again, I'd like to shake your hand and assure the public
My
he's
pleasure.
retiring.
My pleasure again.
I thank you very much, both of you.
The new president,
Not officially yet, but yes.
here's me.
I'm glad I can have that effect on someone other than my 4-year-old son. First of all, we'd like to again congratulate the class of 2011. I sobbingly watched graduation this morning, and it's just so nice to watch students that you've seen grow up over the years graduate, and it's really nice that we take graduation each year to acknowledge their accomplishments. We'd also like to extend our warmest wishes to the retirees this school year, including the both of you. I'm sure September will be lovely for you too. Well, we're in the throes of back to schoolness, which is always fun. We've been really busy the last few months, and Elizabeth has joined me tonight. We're going to tell you a little bit about what we've been doing with Fremart. One of our major goals going forward is to be a substantial community partner and really get out there and let not just the students know that we're here for them, but the families of these students.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about Fremart. Fremart, it's the second one that we've had, and it is where we have items donated by the Easton Area School District teachers. So items or money to purchase the items. We were able to assist about 80 families with paper products, cleaning supplies, pet and baby supplies, and also food items. EAEA appreciates the opportunity to continue to work with and for the community.
Right now, our office is piled high with rolls of toilet paper and paper towels. We do plan on having another Fremart this summer. It's maybe 2. The teachers were very generous this year. So we're hoping to get some dates scheduled for the summer. We'll be sharing things with our community, and it's nice to see the looks on the faces of these families that we can help them. All the information will be located on our website, and we will make sure that you get the updates with that. We've also participated in Roverfest and Relay for Life. We're looking at, some more community events that we can become a part of, because teachers are a part of the community, and we're looking to just share what we have and get out there and support everyone. And happy summer. It's nice to have summer, so enjoy yours.
Thank you. Okay, with that, I will give the executive session reports. On Tuesday, May 31st, and Thursday, June 13th, we had executive meetings. The purpose of the meeting was just to discuss personnel matters and legal matters. At these meetings were Mr. Castavinci, Ms. Fisher, Mr. Freund, Mrs. Hess, Mrs. Holzberger, Mrs. LeClaire, Mrs. Aletta Elson, Ms. Mandarino, Dr. McGinley, myself, Mr. Riley, Mr. Sonetta, and Dr. Valdez. At the other guests were Mr. Blunt, Ms. Dietman Buckman, Ms. Amelie, Mr. Perquisac, and Dr. Roberts. And that was the purpose of our meetings. We're going to go on to new business now. At that point, we're going to ask the approval of personnel matters. Okay, we're going to go to the motion to approve the personnel matters. Is there a second? Discussion. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Now we're moving to B, coaches' salaries for 2011, 2012. Is there a motion? What's accept?
I'll make a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion.
Are these frozen then from?
They are frozen. No
I
discussion.
would like to say one thing. I would like them for the board or the association to look into these salaries, especially the retirement coaches that have left the district. They're not teaching anymore. I mean, I don't mind, I have nothing against the coach, but I do have a lot against what they are paying than some of them. And I think instead of paying them a stipend of what it is every year, I don't know how they come about it, if it's 50 or 100. they should freeze their salary at what they left. And then I wouldn't have any problem. But some of these salaries are a little bit out of the range. For the, as far as I know, in the Lehigh Valley, and I've only checked with the 3 or 4 top schools.
Any other further discussion? Feel free.
I just think that when as we move forward with the budget process next year, it's important that we do look at everything across the board. And that would be, you know, one of many items that the budget could, you know, we could be scrutinizing.
Anybody else? got anything? Before we move our vote, I will say something. I will be voting against this. I asked 2 years ago that we try to diversify our staffs, and because I asked for that particular word and put it out to diversify, I was crucified for it. But I will not be voting to approve or recommend these coaches, because I don't think any effort was made to make our staffs in line with our student population. With that said, I will call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those that say no, say no. Nay.
Nay.
Abstain.
Poll the board, please.
Ms. Fisher? No.
Mrs. Holzberger?
Yes?
Mrs. Ellison?
Yes.
Mrs. Mandarino?
No.
Mr. Riley?
Nay.
Mrs. Hess? Abstain. Mr. Meyer?
No. What's the verdict?
2 yes, 4 no. Motion fails. 1 abstain.
Okay.
Can
So
I ask a
please-
question? We went through this again last year,
We went through this, what, last?
so are you saying that all the coaches are fired again?
Only thing I'm saying, I was not voting, I voted against
We
it.
went through this again last year, so all the coaches are fired again?
Is that what it fits? Is that what it's telling us? That we are not approving the coaches' salaries? That we don't have coaches? Am I correct with this?
Yes.
Okay. That's what it says.
Well, I don't want to do that. Then I will change my vote.
I knew that was
I
gonna happen.
strongly mentioned what I said was at my point, and if you can take that under consideration next year as a board, then I will change my vote. But if it's step 1, this is not right for the taxpayers to be paying these kind of salaries to coaches that work 3 or 4 months a year.
I have to disagree with you on that, Pat, because we just talked about how we want them to mentor and being involved and making, so I don't see coaching, and you as a coach should know that our coaches are not just 3 months a year. There's a lot of times the kids come to our coaches for personal issues, they call them after school hours, so I totally disagree with that statement.
Well, you're talking about one team, because I can revert back to other teams that it's not being done.
Then
And that's what
making a
bothers
random
me.
s- okay, making a
Because I
random
was a
statement.
coach and I did mentor people, so I know what it takes.
It still stays at fees unless someone else changes their mind. Lily?
No.
Tim?
I'm not changing my mind.
Okay.
Well, please understand what you're doing when you don't change your vote. You're making this athletic department have no coaches.
For the summer.
I'm sorry?
For the summer, I mean, there are summer activities, I'm sure, right, Mr. I mean, do people do anything in the summer to,
The coaches do everything in the summer voluntarily. Years ago, they received intramural pay, cover the weight room, out-of-season activities. That was cut before my tenure by Mr. Shriver, the athletic director. So when the coach gets that stipend, technically that's only for in their season, first day of practice, last day of practice. However, they are there 12 months out here in the weight room. I constantly get from the custodians and Mr. Case's men, your people are here all the time and we want to clean and do things. And they're there on their own time. You don't get paid for that out of season. And I don't have one coach that doesn't work with our kids out of season for $0 voluntarily. They all do the intramural program, where we fill it out on paper. We have that board approved, have all the documents on it, the kids fill those out. For that reason, the 9 months out of season, they are there voluntarily as athletes and as coaches. Considered intramurals, I believe, Ms. Guidry, even for our insurance policy, to cover the kids and coaches out of season, in the gym, the weight room, and on the fields. And our salaries, I don't negotiate those, and I've never been on that. That is negotiated through the teachers' union. So
I know
if feel they're a little high, they're just getting what has been negotiated. And they will take 0% this year because of the freeze and all the salaries.
You're right, Jim, but I'm asking that the board and the association look at that and take it out of the contract. That's my whole problem.
And if we rehire, if you were to have a veteran coach, 25, 30 years, leave and hire a new coach, there's documentation in that contract that says someone coming even from out of the district with 20 years coaching experience gets credit for that. So just because we get rid of a veteran coach that's been in our program for 20, 30 years, doesn't mean a new coach coming in is going to necessarily make less money because of that contract.
Well, that should still be negotiated in the contract, and so.
And that would be up to them to direct me on, but I just calculate it as it's written in the contract. And
Go ahead.
I mean, again, the out-of-season stuff, you can say no and table it. Again, if you would like me to find all coaches right now, I don't know what coaches in Lehigh Valley that have already been established in their programs at any other school would leave their school at this time of the year preparing for a fall soccer, a golf season, whatever it may be, field hockey, and leave and come to us at this time in their career or in the year. Usually you have a month or two to do a search, and we've done that with other openings. To do that a month before the seasons begin. Our first days are, I think, August 3rd, is when we start our preseason meetings, so not too much further away from that.
Can I just to clarify then something here? The motion states that this is to approve the salary scale for coaches. And the salary scale is in the contract,
Yes.
which is approved.
Right.
So we're not actually approving a list of coaches.
Well,
We're
that's along with that, yes.
That is, yeah, they get renewed every
Once
year.
a year we do
Their
this.
salary
We do that in
and their
July.
contract.
So inclusive with the.
It's
And the board
inclusive.
asked me before, July was too late, in case you wanted to vote differently than what I put forward.
Okay,
now we moved it to
so let me
June.
just ask then, so then the motion as stated then is not
Clear,
complete?
crystal clear.
Because this clearly says we're approving a salary scale for coaches. And it doesn't say, and
Renewal of contract.
renewal of
Yearly contract.
coaches as presented or whatever. So, I mean, I still don't have a problem with it. I'm not trying,
This
but,
wasn't done until about 2 or 3 years ago, at your request to do this once a year.
Mhm.
Before, if they were with us last year, were satisfactory, they automatically came back. So we compiled this before the new year begins for the last 2 or 3 years.
I have a comment. I understand Carrie's concern, Mr. Meyer's concern about the diversity within the coaching. I mean, we all understand that and the need to increase the expansion of the diversity within the coaching staff. But talking about the wages and talking about the current positions right now, this is something that I think we should have been discussing months ago. You know, to now open up that window, and I understand it's a proposal before us right now, but that should have been discussed. I mean, what I'm thinking about with the budget impact, these things should have been discussed long ago within each of the departments. The athletic department's one department. Where are they gonna be able to cut or make changes in the fees that are put forth by the wages to the district? It's now a little late to do that for this year. That's my personal opinion.
And that's why I stated, I didn't say
But that's,
this year.
right, but that's my point right now to the whole board, is that at this point, it's, just seems a little bit beyond when we should be talking about this.
I think it's important to note, obviously, what President Myers has stated has been an issue that we have discussed and we are cognizant of. And there is another part of this scenario, and we have a director of athletics. And it is his responsibility, and I feel he does an outstanding job, to look at all of our coaches and to recommend them, and he has done so. So when there is talk about recommending coaches and conversations, those conversations are ongoing. and the recommendations before you are from our Director of Athletics. When we look at a salary scale, that is something that was negotiated with this contract. This is the third year of this particular contract. It is a non-negotiable item at this time because it was ratified by this board. So when you look at salaries, when you look at individuals, they are things that you can obviously think about as you enter a new agreement. But at this current time, you have a salary matrix that has been ratified, and that is what is before you. It's not something that the administration is, being reluctant about. It's something that we need to, it's a legal document. It is before us, and we need to move forward. And we're here, obviously, to do what's best for our students. What is best for our students is not what has just been before us. I mean, we have coaches. We have coaches that have been in positions for many years, and I think whether you're in a teaching capacity or a custodial capacity or a secretarial or a paraprofessional or a bus driver or an administrator or any other aspect of our district, we're trying to build capacity. We're trying to recruit the best, retain the best. And with that being said, I think we have done that, and I think we continue to do that. As we have openings, they are things, as you have said, diversity we do look at, and we will continue to look at. But I think that we're being remiss in this vote. I don't think it's what's best for our students.
Okay, with that being
Mr.
said,
President,
with that being said, I think there's two issues here that need to be understood. The fact of the matter is, when it came in under the coach's salary scale, it should have been the second one, adding that we should have put in the minute in this particular program that renewal of the coach's contract. Because we're talking about two different issues here. We're talking about salary that we know we're tied into, and we're talking about renewal of contracts. So at that point, we need to split this and vote on renewal of contracts. And then we also need to vote on salary scale. So I think somewhere along the line, we need to make a motion to change this thing, all right?
My motion would be to look at the salary scale for the coaches for the 211-212 school year. Not this year. I didn't ask for this year.
Mr. Rowley, you got a comment?
Mr. President, in light of Mrs. McGinley's comments about what's best for the students, I voted no because I don't think what we're doing here is best for the students. We have coaches that don't help our students get into college or scholarships or make sure they have the right classes to graduate on time, so they don't have to go to other schools, so they don't have to take summer school to graduate, that don't hold the grades back so they can play the next game. This is what's going on with some of these coaches, and that's why I voted against it.
I have to say a point to that. My question is it the coach's responsibility or our guidance counselor's responsibility to make sure that our students are taking the right classes?
It's a team.
It is a team, but you're putting all the onus on our coaches, not as a, and you talk about team, you put them as a team.
But that's just one aspect. When you get the coaches helping
And I
get
believe
films
Mr.
and other
Kubisak
things
informed us
for
that they were working on that.
when our students want to go to college and they're a prospective athlete at the college, and that college coach wants the films of the student who played in the games, and our administration and coaching staff does not submit those films to the coaches, we're doing a disservice to our students.
So then don't
This
penalize
and other
all the
things like
coaches, penalize the coaches that aren't doing it.
Okay.
I would like to make a motion that we separate. That way I do not have to abstain from the entire contract. And the other coaches, if everyone would continue their vote the way it is, and if we could pull out my husband, and then we could also take a second vote for that.
I think it's really important that we have some clarity with this issue that was brought up. One of the ongoing, dialogues has been trying to mesh our guidance counselors and also our coaching staff. And I think that we have made great strides this year. We've worked with Dr. Duffy, we've worked with our coaches, we've worked with our Director of Athletics, Jim Pokrivsak. We sent staff members to Penn State so that they could be aware of different ways to help our students. And I have seen wonderful things this year. And as we move forward, I expect that things will even be better in the future. And when we talk about tapes, I mean, that was one conversation that Mr. Prokofzak and I had. And indeed, this is being done. Jim, would you like to speak on that, please?
I just released to the public, and it was in the newspaper, The Express, last week, 32 athletes are leaving us to go to play or commit to college sports. The list I just got from guidance, that 40 athletes have enrolled in the eligibility center to go to college after this. Of those, at least 12 are minority athletes. We're working with guidance and everything. Our coaches cannot go on to kids' schedules because of privacy issues in our school. They can only look at their own students in class. We went through this. We sat at the NAACP last Thursday. We discussed it with that group. We are doing what we can within our legal limits to do that. And as for athletes never getting a tape to a college coach, I've never been called on that issue. I had one parent ask me about it. When I clarified with him, he wanted a highlight tape of his son. We don't do highlight tapes. You want to do that, you go to somewhere else, or you stand on the sideline with a video camera. We send them directly to college coaches, out of my office, in the DVDs, in the DVD cases, and we even also send them sometimes downtown here to the central mailing to send them out. So we're doing everything we can to get our kids into college. Can we do a little bit more, streamline it? Absolutely. But to say we're not doing anything, that's an injustice to our coaches.
Well, to some extent, you are right. To some extent, there have been cases in the past where tapes were not sent. And let's not act like we have. There's been cases where tapes cannot send, and I can personally attest to that. To go back to our motion that Mrs. Hess put out, she wants to exclude her husband from that, so she'd be allowed to vote. Is there a second on her motion?
Second.
Ms. Myers, before we do that, I'm sorry, is there, based upon, before Mrs. Hess intervened there, based upon the information provided by Dr. McGinley and anybody else who spoke, is there anybody that would be willing to reconsider their vote at that time, that we could do a motion for reconsideration?
I didn't say that.
Other than Pat, because it's still going to fail.
The issue is the salaries. If we separate,
Yeah.
the contract is,
Contractual.
the salary itself is contract, but the problem we have with this particular amendment, it's not separated. My issue is not with the salary, my issue is with the coaches in general. So I wish we could separate that. I would change my mind and go along with the contract once we separate this. I have no problem paying what needs to be paid. My issue is with staffing. So if that's where we're going with this, I have no problem changing and going along with the salary because it is contract. I was part of the negotiation to put it where it's at right now. This was not clear when it came on to the agenda tonight, and it should have been separated as salary for one and renewal of contracts as second. So I think this is this is the path we need to go down. This is if it's combined, that's why it's not clarification there.
I don't think we can break them out, the positions are tied to the salary.
They are.
correct?
And-
No, they're not.
I think one thing that's important, the salaries are contractual, it's a legal document. So it's a moot point that the salaries, because of the contract, can be changed. If the individual is changed and you brought someone on that had less experience, yes, the salary would be different. So you're talking about two different issues.
I think we're not talking about two different issues. Each year, we have to renew a contract of the coaching staff. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That has nothing to do with the salary. It's part of the teacher's contract. That is a different individual thing, because if that's the fact, we could not reduce the coaching staff. If you're telling me, if we want to reduce coaching staff or reduce staff in that place, you're telling me because of the salary in our agreement we made with the teacher union, we couldn't reduce it. These are two different things. They are not bound by the same contract, tell me I'm wrong, that the teachers are.
I think those.
They are on an individual contract year by year.
They are, but they're recommended from our director of athletics. So the recommendation.
It's a recommendation.
It is, and that's, by our policy, our recommendations are made from our administrators on who is the most highly qualified candidate. So with that being said, if those individuals possess X amount of years, it's based on that number of year according to the amount that is agreed upon contractually. And that's how that's determined.
I understand what you're saying, but in the same breath, we do have individual contracts for the athletic coaching staff. Are they not two different issues?
Yes, but what I'm hearing is that this was already approved. What was ratified previously?
What was ratified?
The
salary.
The salaries.
The salary.
In the Appendix B in our contract, it lists all of our extra pay for extra duties, and the coaches are broken out percentages per sport, and then there's a base rate. So the coach receives a percentage of that base rate. In a case where it's an experience credit, years of service as a head coach or an assistant coach of a particular sport within the Easton Area School District shall be credited on one-to-one basis. Service outside the district shall be the basis of 1 year credit or 2 years of service. They receive adding $50 for each year of credited coaching service in any particular sport. And that's in our contract.
Okay. That
So it
takes care of the
kinda-
money aspect.
Right.
What it doesn't tell me is that I am wrong that they do not get a year-to-year contract. Is that wrong? Or are they on a continuous contract?
The people I'm putting forward to you have received a satisfactory evaluation, and in my opinion, are being asked to be approved tonight. And if they get approved, they get that salary that is contractual with them. So it's a combination of both. I don't think we can separate them.
It's almost the approval of the candidates.
And if we,
I think that's
if
wrong.
you don't hire them, and then later down the line I rehire them, they get years of service anyway, and more coaches would make money if we let them go and bring them back a year from now. Because then they get $50 for every year. They don't get a small increment based on the contract.
Okay. But I'm just, I think Mr. Kish, you have something to say, please say it, please.
We went through this a number of years ago, and it was probably about 6 years ago. What's happening here is that there's a contractual obligation to the salary.
Right.
You can vote, as a previous board did, to open the coaching positions. Now, you can open all the positions to vote, and then and choose to do so where you can select certain coaching positions where that you can open. And I'll give you examples. If you want to do football, basketball, and baseball, you would make a motion to open those positions. That way, then, that means that those positions would be open for rehire and the contract not renewed. But right now, as the way the motion is stated, you're voting on a contractual
Financial
entity,
entity.
finance, which you really can't turn that down because it's been ratified.
Right.
So the motion should say, open all coaching positions or something to that effect, so that means that those positions would be open and not.
Because the way it's raised right now, it's
renewed.
like we're rubber stamping it without any discussion if we wanted to on a coaching position, the way this reads right now. Okay, so, is there a second on Mrs. Hess's, can we move on with that
Yes,
now?
I'm sorry, yes.
Is there a second to Mrs. Hess's motion?
Yes, I
Jen
seconded it.
did? Okay, all those in favor say aye. To Mrs.
Aye.
Hess's, so she'd be allowed to vote, or her husband no.
Aye.
Two separate.
Two different
two
votes.
separate.
It'll be pulled by
Any position
himself.
that he is in would be pulled out and be voted on separately.
Okay.
And I would abstain to that.
Okay, all right. With that said, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Roll call. To separate.
Ms. Fisher? Yes, you can separate.
Mrs. Hess? Yes.
Mrs. Holzberger?
Yes?
Mrs. Ellison?
Yes.
Mrs. Mandarino? Yes. Mr. Riley?
Aye.
Mr. Meyer?
Yes.
Unanimous.
All right. Now that they're separated, let's take Mr. Hess by himself, and then we'll move on the others. All those in favor of retaining Mr. Hess's jobs, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed?
Abstain.
Okay, now let's move on to the other coaches. With that said, all those in favor of the way it stands right now, coach's salary for 2011, 2012, say aye.
Aye.
All those that say, or opposed, say no.
Nay.
Mrs. Mandarino, if you have a question before you vote, please.
I have no problem with the salary scale because you can't do nothing, we already
Absolutely.
discussed all that. It's the positions. So even though you can't touch them this year anyway because of
Oh, we can still
the
touch them.
negotiation.
We can still touch them. Am I correct with that? We can open up positions. if you feel the need to.
Well, wait a minute. Here's my issue with that. It was brought from our athletic director, and if you're going to do that, are we the ones making the decision, or are we paying him the job to do that?
That's your question.
No, that's my comment.
That's your comment, okay.
And I agree with that. But I
So,
also
okay.
agree, when there's a position open, as there was a couple weeks ago, we should be questioning the superintendent. So it goes both ways, and I agree with Jody. When he comes with a list of people that he wants to be their coaches, they should be approved, not
Or
us.
denied, whichever you want.
That's taken out. I agree with that. It's not my, wasn't my theory to go through that.
I think the point here is that really for the board, it's budgetary and what the district can afford.
Right, so
And that comes back to contractual, which at this
We have no
point in
choice
time,
with
we
that.
can't do
Right.
anything about that. So that's something that should be entered into a discussion about how many coaches we have, you know, next year for the following year.
So starting for the budget for 2012, 2013 is when you should start looking at what's necessary,
When your contract is up.
right, as far as for coaching, what
Right.
you can pull out and what
Right.
you can piece. That's what I think should be
That-
done.
I agree.
It should have been done a long time ago, but this is all over now.
Well, there was discussion at other meetings, but
Yeah,
it died in meetings.
yes.
All right. So we are voting on the contract that we are bound
And then
by,
the salary.
on the rest of the coaches.
Everyone but Ms.
Do we have a motion on the contract salary?
Oh, we just did all that, didn't we?
And we voted it down, we gotta re-vote it, otherwise they're out of work. We need to change it.
It was,
This
first
is
one was
salary and
salary of
personnel.
Mr. Hess, and the other one's everyone else minus Mr. Hess.
Okay.
Yeah. My understanding.
Yes,
That's
you're right.
correct. Now we're voting on everyone else but Mr. S.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, are we clear with that, Joe? Are we correct, we're voting on salaries and positions?
It has to be both.
It has to be both.
Because you can't afford it.
So the original motion.
I can't even go there.
Original motion as stated. Okay? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay.
Nay.
Roll call.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Hess?
Yes.
Mrs. Holzberger?
Yes.
Mrs. Ellison?
Yes.
Mrs. Mandevino?
Yes.
Mr. Riley?
Nay.
Mr. Meyer?
No,
5 yes, 2 no.
it passes. Your coaches are retained. Okay, let's move on to administrative professional contract. Motion to approve the agreement by the Eastern Area School District and the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Workers, FL-CIO District 33, Local 1893, Administrative Personnel, as presented.
Motion?
Second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Abstain.
Okay, Jody abstained. You know why? Okay. Unfinished business, engineering services. It was tabled from last month. Motion.
Motion.
Second.
Second.
Discussion.
I have a few questions on the contract itself.
Had contract.
Do you have the contract?
We had contract. I moved over.
I have the contracts.
Go ahead.
Okay. I just would like, I'm asking for kind of an explanation regarding, it's within the retainer services. Engineers will prepare an energy plan and provide owner.
Where are you? I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
It's page 2.
Page 2. Number.
1.11.
Okay.
Will provide an energy plan and provide energy services after submitting a separate proposal. So I'm assuming that a separate proposal needs to be paid for above and beyond the retainer service before you had this retainer service provided for, correct?
I would assume so, and I think there's a gentleman here from Dewey.
Yes.
That's your understanding of that also?
The way this is stated, it says, do you have the contract there, page 2? So 1.11, engineer will prepare an energy plan and provide energy services after submitting a separate proposal and only after obtaining owner's approval for the scope and fees.
So my interpretation would be get approval for the scope and the fees of the proposal, and then prepare the proposal.
He's asking if it's cost us twice.
Well, it seems to me that there's part of this that says that is some that's included in retainer and services also above and beyond that. The separate proposal I'm seeing as a separate thing that you pay
Separate fee
for,
above and beyond
correct?
the retainer. Yes.
So
I
before they
agree.
can even provide the services in the retainer, as a district, you're gonna have to pay for the initial service with a separate proposal that they prepare.
I agree, the way that this is worded, yes.
Okay. So I just wanted to bring people's attention to some of these items that are within this retainer that also include items that we are going to have to pay for above and beyond the retainer fee.
But only if we approve it.
Only if we approve.
Correct.
Exactly, but you're not going to get the scope of the retainer in this one item unless you've already had them submit a separate proposal, which you paid for above and beyond.
Well, this is already reviewed by,
I understand that, but, I mean, it was reviewed
Yep.
and he corrected language in it. And I'm appreciative of that, and I see that, but I still see things within this retainer that,
right, so my question to you is clarification on it. No matter who we had, we'd have to pay that fee for somebody doing energy.
maybe, maybe not, you don't know. It depends on the company. I mean, truly. But my point, I guess, is that this one item, and there's several other questions here is regarding retainer services, that even the one before it, 1.10, that lend themselves to a gray area of what's included in this preparing of the written plan of the districts, original drawings of the buildings and permanent record. What part of that, it says all expenses associated with making copies and protecting original drawings will be invoiced to the owner. So there also is included in this a portion that is going to have to be paid above and beyond the retainer fee.
Okay, what other questions do you have? 'Cause, my question to you is, we've had this contract for a couple of weeks, we tabled it before. I'm kind of thinking you could have called and asked, and had that taken care of before we came to the board on this.
Well, the point I'm making is, we had our solicitor look it over, and for the legal terms within it,
Yes.
corrected, the language was corrected. So this is the legal version of this, his interpretation of the contract and protecting the district. So I'm just questioning some of the things in here, just for the services themselves and what the retainer includes.
Okay. Understand?
And I just think that it's important that we recognize that, and I also want people, to recognize, board members to recognize that some other companies that were brought to the table had services such as a grant writer that was available, which we've talked about as we go future in our district's budget. We're going to have to be looking for other sources of income other than taxpayers in order to sustain this district and the needs that it has within building maintenance, within our programs. And I think we've all recognized that in many different entities. I'm just saying the buildings and grounds portion of it, there are opportunities with some of these companies that we interviewed, that they had specific grant writers, that they work on it on their own.
I understand where you're coming from, but did we not have a subcommittee that made a recommendation?
did.
That we did? And did we not have a consensus to bring forth this?
Absolutely, but I'm bringing up some of the differences, so that other board members are aware of all the differences between the different
Well, the
options.
board members were briefed when we talked about it once before. Do we need to, I don't know if we need to go over it again.
We
I
didn't
think-
talk about it with the board members specifically, and I think it's important that it's brought up, because I didn't bring it up last time, because the solicitor was going to look over the contract itself, which he did do.
Right.
And I'm just pointing out some differences so that board members are aware of the differences and some of the omissions of this contract that other potential clients would have had for us.
Okay.
Can I just make one comment as well? And I'm just going to recommend this again as going forward. It's something that I have not seen happen enough in my time on the board and would like to see happen in the future, is having a clear sense of what the budgeted projects, what money is available on an annual basis and how it is projected out over 5, 10, 15 years with what currently exists and what might be needed to be carried over into the general fund. rather than having an outside firm who feels that our purse strings are not tied to the larger picture and making recommendations that don't seem to be tied to board and administrative approved expenditures ahead of time. I think that there needs to be a capital plan in place with an amount of money tied so that we are not tempted to be spending money that we are not able to spend just because someone is saying that, you know, now's the time to do it.
Point taken. Any other comments? Because one point I think is missing here is you had a facilities utilization committee, which is comprised of board members and citizens who came up with a plan. We could not fulfill that plan because we didn't have the funds to do it. So I think what we're trying to do now is, as a board, we need to streamline what we need to do and look at things individually to have a long-term plan. I would love to sit back and say, here's our long 5-10-year plan. But if the funds are not there, it's not going to be able to get done. So I think at this point right now, we need to vote on this and move on because we'll beat this horse to death. So with that being said, I'm going to call for a vote on this contract up and down. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
No.
Roll call.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Hess?
No.
Mrs. Holzberger?
No.
Mrs. Ellison?
No.
Mrs. Mandarino?
Yes.
Mr. Wiley?
Aye.
Mr. Myers?
Yes.
4 yes, 3 no.
No. Doesn't pass.
It's 4 yes, 4 yes.
Okay. you
Yes,
got
I'm
it.
sorry, I'm sorry.
Move on to the next item. Up top. Yes. Dr. Volcano, you want to get him on the phone. Wishes to be called for the budget. He's ill, but he wants to vote on the budget. If he's watching this Ustream, pick up your phone.
Yeah. Hey, Pat. Wake up.
Okay, you're ready to make the motion on the budget. Can you talk? Okay, one speaker.
Okay,
Pat, can you hear us?
yes,
Okay.
here,
All right, now we're going to move for final adoption of the 211, 212 budget.
okay.
With that being said, is there a motion?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion?
I do.
Yeah, I'd just like to say that I'm voting for the budget because if we don't vote for a budget this year, it could end up costing us, the taxpayers, more money next year. And also, we have to look at our principal staffing, that we're not overstaffed, because I've been hearing that quite a bit on South Side.
Okay.
But I am prepared to vote yes on the budget because if we don't, it would only increase it for next year.
Okay. Other discussion, please?
Yeah, I would just like to state again, I had the same issue last year when we were presented with the budget. And what we're presented with is a resolution on the taxing, but not the actual budget document itself. And I am confused once again as to the process here, where I think that, in my mind, from what I've read, we should be approving the budget document, which would be a substantial document that would be submitted to the Department of Education, which has line items on where we're spending the money, and then we would approve the accompanying resolution that would state the tax increase that would support that budget. So I am confused about what it is that we are approving with this motion.
Okay. Other discussion?
Well, could I get an answer to my question? What are we approving with this motion?
Good. Rory, you want to prove that, explain that?
I've never done that particular way. We are voting for the total budget, and whether the line items are as such as we have presented. If that's what the board wants us to do, I'll go and get the document. But are you going to review it here tonight and then vote on it? You're actually approving the total dollar amount for the expenditures and then the tax rates. That's what you're voting on.
All right. Other explanation? Is there other discussion?
I just want to make sure that we're
We're voting on the whole package.
Covering our bases here with the resolution as it is.
Yes, you are.
Okay.
You are.
All right, any other discussion? No, let's call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We had a motion. Okay, is there a motion?
Yeah, we have a motion
motion.
second.
Yeah.
Thank you. I didn't think I was losing it. I know I'm getting senior, but come on. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those
Aye.
opposed? Passes.
Yeah, I said aye.
We got you, Dr. Buchanan.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, you're gonna call me back, or you want me to give you my answer on the shredding?
We'll get to that.
Okay.
All right, bye-bye.
Give me a call back.
All right,
All right, bye now.
We haven't gotten that far. Okay. Next, homestead, farmstead exclusion resolution. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? D, before and after care feasibility study. Mr. Kish, I think you have a presentation.
Yes, I do.
Now it's time to bring forth.
I was directed by the board to do a feasibility study on the before and after care services for the school district and whether or not the school district should become involved in before and after care. If I could have the next slide, Tom. Background information. Presently, there are 2 before and after school child care programs that are currently operating in our school district. Locations are Forks Elementary and Tracy Elementary, and they're operated and managed by, at Forks, the Lehigh Valley Children's Center, and the Tracy Elementary Little People Country Club. Both are listed as nonprofits. The times of operation presently are 7 a.m. to 8:45 and 3:25 to 6 p.m. They provide child care services on days that school is in session. Next slide. Our school district provides facilities, utilities, custodial maintenance services presently at no charge. Providers furnish personnel, supplies, equipment for child care services which are not provided by the school district. The providers submit to the school district a certificate of insurance indicating general liability coverage for bodily injury and also property damage in the amount of $1 million, and also personal injury and a certificate of insurance for workers' comp, which is required in employee liability insurance. The students or the children that go to these before and after care must reside in the elementary school sending district, which is Forks, and the Tracy sending areas in order to attend. When asked if the district should engage in before and after care programs, these are the sites that are available for the district to operate. You have Cheston, you have Forks, you have March, Palmer, Pax, Shawnee, Tracy, and we listed the middle school campus because of the 5, 6, and 7, 8, which is basically 2 schools within 1 school. Next slide. Some of the associated costs if the district were to take over the before and after care personnel, and I included in your packet a sheet of salary costs, and the server went down today, so I couldn't get that in there. But to give you an example of personnel, we would have to hire teachers, and presently, if we were to take the 2 programs that we have now, starting teacher salary, which would mean a degree in early childhood education, is presently $44,250. If it would be someone with a little bit more experience and has a master's, it would be $52,853, and you can see that on your salary cost sheet. With benefits, the total for teachers with a bachelor's step 1 is $58,850, and that needs to be taken into consideration as staff, whether or not it be one school, 2 school, or we had an operation in 7 schools. Also included in the associated costs are supplies and materials, the equipment, the utilities, the insurance, and the attorney fees. I've listed, if we go to the next slide, the cost for teachers and custodians and security on that sheet. Another thing with the security, we do have security in our buildings. The hourly rate for our security officer is $11.14. And it would be basically in the morning because it's 7 o'clock is before our starting times for the elementary. And with the programs open till 6 o'clock, that would be from 4 to 6, which is basically after our starting times. And when you extend it out, you can see the total cost for benefits for our security people, and you can also see the total cost for classroom para. Because I'm sure the regulations will change because the district is taking over. Classroom para total with benefits is $18,223.98 just for the 1 year. Equipment costs, cost for supplies. This cost is minimal because basically in all our buildings, we do have tables, we do have that type of equipment that we needed to operate the program. Utility costs, I couldn't get the utility costs from Med Ed broken down by room areas or cafeterias. The two programs that operate in our district now use a portion of the cafeteria, both at Tracy and both at Forks. But if the district took it over, then, you know, that cost, from what some research I did, would probably be somewhere in the area of anywhere between $200 and $500 for those particular hours. The insurance cost, this would be an addition on us because it would be a new program, so we would have to have an additional $1 million policy added to our liability insurance because there is a liability involved here for property damage and also bodily injuries. Then you have attorney fees, and attorney fees would be for policy reviews, legal fees associated with reviews of existing child care rules, regulations, also contract reviews and undetermined needs. If the district takes a program over, then they have to follow the rules and regulations of the Department of Public Welfare. I've also added the attachments. We're missing a few here. Okay.
There it is.
All right. I've added alternatives to district operated before and after school child care services. Should the board choose not to go with district operated services, these alternatives I provided, as you can see, provide district facilities to a duly licensed child care provider, such as the providers we presently have in our district. Establish a before and after school child care services policy, which I think is important to include charges to the provider, if any, as decided by the board for use of district facilities. Determine if the child care provider or providers are to be for profit or non-profit. And that would be up to the board to make that distinction. Establish services based on demand by parents and need for individual elementary schools and the middle school campus. And by that statement, I think it would be necessary, and I'll show you the list later, that a survey be sent out to parents in each one of the individual elementary schools and ask them, is there a need for before and after school services provided in each one of the elementary schools and the middle school. Then the operation could be based on that particular need for that particular building. And that goes back to if it was a district-run service, you can see that to pay $50-some thousand for to have teachers in the building is going to be an extensive cost, which could be hard to make up. If I could have the next slide. These are my recommendations after reviewing the information that I could get a hold of. The EASD, the Eastern Area School District, should not operate before and after school child care programs. If child care services are to be provided, the district should contract with a duly licensed child care provider with a fee charge for the use of district facilities stipulated in yearly contracts with all the providers. The district should survey the parents of each elementary school and middle school to determine the need factor for before and after care programs before implementing any additional programs in our schools. And I've included attachments, which are the salary costs. I've showed you enrollments. And for experience purposes, there's a copy of the Bethlehem Area School District Policy and Procedure Manual, which they have daycares in all of their buildings where they pay by the day. You can see how extensive it is. And the child care program that was submitted by a parent, which the school district is unknown, but it's one page that explains how this particular district, nowhere near the size of our district, I believe.
Bless you.
Questions?
Okay. So I'm correct there. What you gave us is a Bethlehem breakdown, am I correct with that?
That's their child care services.
And their daily rates run from grades 1 to 5 in pre-K and kindergarten. And the daily it goes by hours, is that correct?
Right, by hours, and also goes by number of students that you have enrolled. The more students you have enrolled, the lesser amount for the second, third, fourth child.
Okay. But at one point, our proposal was $25 an hour or $100 a day.
Yes.
And they're actually charging anywhere from $12.74 for pre-K to $33 depending on how long the child is there. And then from the older kids, it goes from $11.75 to $33.49, is that correct?
Yes.
So our proposal for $25 an hour is probably cheaper if they're getting that much money for one child, correct?
If you look at it that way. They have a list of the schools that they provide daycare services, which is just about every school in the district.
Correct.
And it's run by Bethlehem?
And it's run by the school district?
That's run by the school.
They run 17 elementary schools. They have daycare provided for their families that the district runs.
It's just true, yeah.
17.
They make a profit.
Well,
That doesn't make anything off of it.
Joe, asked
They
me-
didn't. They didn't
didn't.
indicate to me what their profit was, but they said it was quite extensive in order to maintain the program. So you can read into that whatever you think.
So these are all additional costs, personnel, whole 9 yards, correct?
Yes.
Which we have-
In the salary cost, when you see that attachment to the salary cost, that basically lists, and it's hard to extend that because you can't say exactly how many programs you're gonna have. But you know that for every school you're gonna have, that based on need, you're gonna have at least one teacher and one aide. And if there is a demand for more than 14, 15, or 20 kids in the classroom, then you're gonna have to go to another teacher. That would be up to the board to decide, how that operation would run. But from looking at the information, the outside contractors or the childcare providers that we do have, they have the training and they've been doing this. If the district provided the facilities, that would take away a lot of the additional cost in salary and personnel that we
And I'm wondering, why is the assumption that one would have to hire a teacher on our teacher salary scale to work a before and after care program?
Because in speaking with the people from Bethlehem, because it's the school district taking it over, they have to there's rules and regulations about their certification, and they're all certified in early childhood.
Okay,
And
but
I'm
that's,
not-
my mother worked in a child care facility and is not a teacher to the extent, but, early childhood, and I know those people that work in those facilities are grossly underpaid for what they deal with, but they're certainly not making $44,000. So the salary assumption that's here to me is a little bit bizarre, knowing what going rates are for early childhood certified before and after care. teaching
I
staff.
think what it requires if you're running a daycare center is that someone's certified with a degree in some type of child care social services program at a college. Not necessarily education, but I see where, and you're thinking it has to be a professional that's running the program, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a teaching professional, but a child, social service
Well,
program.
In the districts that I looked at that had childcare, their employees were part of the teacher contract. So
They were
that's
already
why
part
I
of-
based
okay.
that, because they're considered professional staff. So that's why I based it on that.
Okay. Other questions before I ask a couple?
The only other comment that I had, and it's not so much a question, I think Mr. Kisher did a really nice job in getting all this information together, and I appreciate it for the district's end of things, and I think it would be helpful as we go forward with the decision-making with daycare, that we might hear from the provider, from the nonprofit organization that does provide services right now as to their perception of what their service is and what the impact is on the district for fees, so that we can have more of a holistic approach to this. And know which way we want to go, whether it be a school district provided initiative or one that we offer to an outside agency to provide for the district.
Okay. Any other discussion on this particular issue? Folks? Huh? Because I do have a couple. Go ahead, make your comment.
I know there's a need for parents to go to work. I get that. But it's the school's responsibility to educate the children, not take care of the children. That's where I have a problem with this. I sacrificed a lot in my life to raise my children and not work, and then go to work when they were old enough to be taken care of. Unfortunately, my husband was in an accident and I had to take care of him, and then he watched the children. But I don't agree that the district should be in it to take care of kids before and after school. That's the parent's job to get them to school. We're here to educate them, and the parents to pick them up. There's gotta be a plan B if the school closes early, or because it's so hot out, we're letting the kids out early. There's gotta be plan Bs. These people had all year long, what did they do with their children if there wasn't a daycare in the school? That's all I got to say.
Any other comment?
I think that the district itself doesn't have the obligation to provide a daycare service for the students of the district. But if we were to afford the opportunity for an outside agency that specializes in that and set up a fair fee structure that's cognizant of what truly costs the district, so that it isn't a cost above and beyond for the district to maintain those buildings because of the program, that it's not harmful for us to offer that opportunity for an agency to provide it. And that's why I was saying that it might be beneficial to actually have Lehigh Valley Daycare, I believe, is the nonprofit that provides for the district, and perhaps have the director of that program come. She's more than willing to come and just speak as to, on her take on their services and what it's impacted the district, how it's impacted the district.
Well, we have a lot of places out there. Even in my neighborhood, there's a woman a street over who has a licensed daycare. And there was one right by my house. We have to let those people thrive, exactly, and keep the jobs, keep people working, that, and support the local people, instead of bringing it into the school.
Any other comment? If not, I'll say what I understand the need. I just don't agree. What I do agree with Millie is the fact that we should get into it. We just faced a $14 million deficit. We're trying to put another program on top of fire. To me, I think it's foolish. We've asked teachers to take cuts and freezes, and bus drivers, and custodians, and everybody else to take a freeze, and we want to add another program for the convenience, which you started with for a few. And I think that's wrong. We got the numbers down to a point where we only have to use a little reserve. I understand the need, but you know what, and I also read the emails that we get from various parents, some nice, some not too nice. The cynical fact that we let the kids out early because the heat, and one of our buildings, or two of our buildings have air conditioning, and they should have been forced to stay in school. I think it's ridiculous. I don't feel it's the district's responsibility. This is just me speaking for myself. or the taxpayers, and even if we are self-sufficient, we're going to have to pay salaries. I don't care if it's 12,000 or 40,000. We gotta pick up that difference. We're gonna have, you know, and the wear and tear, and my biggest fear with this before and after daycare is it's not just gonna stop at the school year. You know, once you get your foot in the door, you kick it open, and I think this is the start of it, and I've been adamant against it from the word go. I think the problem that we have here is, we've had people come in and move in and live here and all of a sudden decide that we're supposed to be the babysitter for their children. It's the same problem you have with athletics. If you coach young kids, they drop their kids off of practice and they come back 3 hours later. It's your responsibility to watch your child. That's not the district's responsibility. And with that said, I'm going to shut my mouth unless there's other discussion. We're going to move on because we only asked for a study. We're not
Right.
voting on this.
But we do have an issue that remains, and that is we have 2 existing services provided in our schools that have been provided at no cost for, I don't know how many years has this been going on. And it has never come to the board's attention prior to recently that there's even an issue. We have asked for a fee structure. We have received communication from the existing child care providers saying, do we exist? What will we have to pay? All these families are counting on us. They've been using our services for years. Could you please let us know what fee we have to pay? And if the feasibility study shows that, fine, it's not feasible for the district to undertake in all of our buildings an option of providing, I would like to know from our administration, from Dr. McGinley, how much are you suggesting, or what are you going to tell the 2 providers that are currently in our schools they are doing for next year? We can't walk away from this meeting tonight without having the ability, or at least our administration, if they need guidance from us, if there's anything that requires a board vote to move forward, doing that. It's not fair to all of the families and the businesses, local businesses that have been operating in our schools for all these years. I'm not disagreeing with the comments about the feasibility. It's just, it's a service provided. We need to make it equitable. What's the rate? How is it equitable?
How's the fee structure, going back on Mrs. McGinley, if the Buildings and Grounds Committee voted to be a $25 an hour fee?
The Buildings and Grounds doesn't vote on anything. The board.
They recommended it.
Right, and it didn't get voted on. Nothing's been voted, nothing has been
So really,
approved.
you're asking her to, you're asking her to make a decision on something that hasn't been voted on.
Absolutely, well, that's it. So if but this is months now trying to come up with, and first it was $1,000 a year from the administration. Now it's $18,000 a year from the administration. Neither has been voted on. The current policy says $100. It doesn't say $100 a day. I'm not gonna hear that it says $100 a day because it doesn't. So, do we charge them $100? Or what is the plan? We cannot leave these families from our community without an answer on what they're doing with their children in 2 of our elementary schools, August 24th when school starts, if that's the date that school starts. We can't. So if you can do this without a well, it's the truth. I mean,
It's actually the way we've operated for the last 10 years, at least in this district. We've had these daycare, because I know that because I've been in the schools for at least 10 years, they've had the daycare. So I think the point is, we need to at least give these agencies that now have operating, well, you know, services, where do they go in the future? What happens? Are they contacting their clients, their parents, their families, and telling them that they no longer have the ability to provide services in the building? Where are we going as a board, as a directive to these current programs that have been allowed to be in our district for 10 years?
Did the people from these 2 schools ever think about going to the Forks Community Center? I mean, that's what Palmer School did. Palmer has theirs through the Palmer, the shrimp.
Well, I don't know if there is a daycare center provided at Forks Community Center.
That's what I'm asking you.
there isn't one at Forks.
But I mean, that's not a question for, that's not something for.
That's right.
The point is that there right now, currently, for 10 years, has been a service provided in several of our elementary schools. So we need to decide as a board what kind of directive we give those agencies that provide those services so that they can contact their clients who are also our clients as to what we're going to allow them to provide in our district or not.
I'm somewhat confused. We have Jen asking the superintendent, and now you're asking the board.
Yeah, well-
What are we
Well, I'm
the
asking, so
recommendation?
does she need direction from us, or is there a decision that can be made without us? I mean, if it's something that requires board action, we need to take action on it so that these companies can move forward. If the administration can work with the current policy, which says $100, or past practice, or,
I would just like to say, I think it far exceeds the amount of money. I think that there was a divide on the board on whether you wanted to proceed with the current stance that you have. And that's why we are currently at this position. So as a board, I think you need to decide, do you want to move forward with what you currently have in place at Tracy, at Forks, because there's been conversation at the board level, at Forks, Tracy, and then at March. So that's where we are. We are at a standstill because there's a divide on the board. So before the board decides which way we are going, I mean, you've asked for a feasibility study, so Mr. Kish prepared that to see to the best of his ability within the 3 weeks. And I think that it's a matter of, we had 2 schools that operated. We had March that operated before the current construction, and then after the current construction, that's when all of this started to take place. And there were certain people on the board that wished to proceed in that direction, and there were certain people that chose not to. So I think as a board, you have to give us the direction on how you want to proceed. And that's when President Myers was referring to the building and grounds, that had come up at that point, and also at the board meeting.
But Dr. McGinley, several months ago, the board voted, and the majority voted to allow before and after care programs in our elementary school students, and that point was the directive to go and look at the fee structure. It was voted by the board that before and after care was an acceptable use of our buildings. It was the fee structure that was at issue. And because we didn't have a buildings and grounds meeting last year, and Mrs. Bellotti had brought up the question of the feasibility of the district running, because we were getting $1,000 a year, $18,000 a year, that additional question was asked. The board did agree, it's a couple of months ago, at a meeting, to allow before and after care. It was the fee structure that was the administration that we were looking for the recommendation to go on. And the feasibility study was an offshoot of that. But we've heard a range from $1,000 to $18,000 a year so far, and we have not had a buildings and grounds meeting or a policy meeting in the month of June. So here we sit at the end of the month with 2 current providers. So the rest of the school district, you know, if there's something that's going to happen with setting up something that makes it feasible in other schools, but we still have 2 current providers that are left in an unfair situation, and all those families that need some guidance. I mean, we've been receiving correspondence asking when, and
I'm just reiterating that I'm getting mixed messages from the board. Certain board members want to proceed in this direction, and some don't.
again, if the majority vote was that we were proceeding in this direction, regardless of what the mixed message is from individuals, the majority of the board voted to go with elementary daycare in our schools.
Go ahead.
I don't think the question is the 2 operating programs right now, because the board did vote to have them in there. The question is policy 707 needs, and I agree what Jen said, what she's saying. The fee structure on policy 707 is hanging out there, because originally when I came up, I was asked to come up with a fee structure. So I looked at other districts. That's where we got the $1,000. That one was not liked, so I came up with another one. That one wasn't liked too well either. So that is hanging out there. But those 2 childcare providers are still gonna operate in the district. And I think when it goes back to the policy committee, that we need to set that whatever it's gonna be, that's amicable for everybody. And, you know, I think that that's the only hangup that I see right here that's keeping that going. If the board chooses to have other daycare providers come into the district, that fee structure has to be in place, because what's happening with policy 707 is, next year when school starts, when organizations want the auditoriums and they want the cafeterias and they want to have programs, our fee structure for that total policy use of facilities is still in limbo, because we haven't passed it. So I think at the next policy meeting, we should get to work and just figure
And we
that out.
haven't passed it because of this one issue.
And that's the only
It's the
hang-up.
daycare.
Everything else is okay.
Right, so here's the problem that I see, and I agree with you, Mr. Kitch. So the point that's under contest right now is the fee structure for daycare center, if the providers that already exist are allowed to continue to use it. And we need to give them an answer as to whether they're allowed to proceed for next year or not, so that they can timely contact their clients and let them know whether they have daycare provided in a building or not by the agency. So the fee structure, if we're still in limbo with that one portion of that fee structure, you know, maybe the recommendation should be go forward with 707, extract that portion of the daycare, have that for discussion at the buildings and grounds or policy end of things. And as a board, decide whether we're gonna allow daycare to provide their service. The fee will have to be, I mean, perhaps we can leave the fee the way it is at this, you know, currently in the last contract, until we have further discussion and debate for the following year, for 2012-13.
I would suggest you leave it as is, because they're operating as is like they did for the last 10 or 12 years.
Give them a
They're in there.
chance to get,
So that they're in there. When policy 707 is passed, which may take a couple months, you know, to get the fee structure straightened out, because you still have to decide whether or not other people may want to come into the other schools.
right.
The important thing is the survey, based on the needs. If it comes out that maybe 2 schools you need something else, that policy 707 gets taken care of, then you'll be okay.
Is there a survey right now that's out there still at large that hasn't been completed?
There are some available, but we didn't send anything.
You haven't instituted a survey?
I made that suggestion because from what I read, all the schools like Bethlehem, they said, send out a survey.
So here's my recommendation, that we extract that one portion from, not that we're voting on 707 tonight, but make a decision as to that number policy, 707, extracting the daycare portion, the fee structure for daycare. Having them, since we're leaving them in limbo, which is not fair to the parents and the families that are clients, for 2011-12, maintain their same status while we discuss a fee structure and policy and procedure in our policy committee
I would
for
just-
future.
Yeah, I would just like to reiterate a couple things. I mean, obviously, we need to let parents know. I mean, we're all in agreement with that, whatever the decision is. And when you take a vote, as Mrs. Holtzberger said, that should be a vote that, when it's intact, you move forward. However, that's not always the case on the school board. And when the feasibility study came in at our last meeting, it was because there was divide here. So I think that, you know, there needs to be transparency here. There are challenges, there are concerns with certain people. And whatever the case may be, you have to let parents know. I mean, that is the
That's the
right
bottom
thing to
line.
do. Whether you choose to go with an independent daycare that you currently have in 2 of our schools, or if you choose to go with an Easton Area School District daycare, or if you choose to go with no daycare, and obviously an established fee structure. Mr. Kish did provide you different information, and we still are not, you know, where we need to be. So as a board, I think decisions have to be, you know, made at this level, so we can proceed.
Okay, at this point, yes, the board voted a few months ago to bring daycare into the district, but I don't think that's a problem. I don't think I don't think we rubber stamp 707 because there are some board members who have issues with policy 707. That needs to be discussed at the next policy meeting, which will be in August because we have no committee meeting in July. I think at this point right now, what we need to do is allow, September is the next policy? You don't have anything else? No committee meetings until September? Okay, I stand corrected, September. I think at this point right now, what we need to do is, as a board, come up with a recommendation that the current programs that are in effect need to stay status quo until we can come up with something else. Therefore, they know they can contact their clients and tell them that we are proceeding with the same program they've had the past year until we can iron out our differences, and ask for the other one until we can straighten it out. Because there are definitely a divide, and I think the problem here, where the divide may lie, and that's, if you want transparency, for-profit versus non-profit. That's where the divide goes. And the fact that a group of people decided what they're going to bring into the district as to what the board has the right to bring in. So until we can make up our differences to come up with consensus, I think we need to let the folks at Tracy and Forks know that we are, unless I'm wrong, that they can go with status quo until this board can iron out what's going on.
Can I make a suggestion, though, or at least let's find out how we can tailor this appropriately? If the board made a decision in October to raise the fee to $18,000 for the year, you know, you're going to put providers in a situation that they would not have been prepared for. So is there some way that we can make a motion that would at least buy them, let's say, half the year? For instance, making a motion that they're allowed to operate and the fee will be, the original fee was, you know, $1,000. We're charging $1,000 to those two providers, and that $1,000 will cover them through, let's say, January. And if there's to be a change in fee structure for the second half of the year, that they would be notified by, you know, November of that change. Something.
I think at this point right now, trying to make that recommendation on what we're going to do, we are between a rock and a hard place. You have the board divided on this. Until you can get consensus of the 8 people, and by that time, there may be 9 people who come in here, I think we need to just move forward with the people who are already there, let them go, and this board needs to work it out. This board may not work it out. It may be pushed off to the new board coming in January or December. Because I can tell you right now, if you look at this board right now, we are split, we are fractured on the entire issue, and we've been split from day one. So I don't see resolution, but only thing we can do is continue to talk about it.
All right, so then, just to clarify, so then what you're saying is that the administration will tell these 2 operators that they're allowed to continue to operate as they currently have?
I am making that suggestion, that the board can say yes or no. That's my suggestion. I didn't mean to cut you off.
The other suggestion that I'm thinking of, so that we can go forward in a very informative way, where we have all of the information on the table and make a thoughtful decision about it, is we've heard from Joe, from Mr. Kish, the feasibility study for us doing it ourselves. So we have that information now. If we could have the providers at a committee level come in and speak to us about what services they provide and their perception of the impact it has on the school district, so that we have that information also on their end of things as we're making a decision on that portion of 707.
I have no problem with bringing it back to the committee level. Anybody else? To bring them in, but, you know, as far as 707, I still have some issues with that, and that will be discussed at the next policy meeting. But I really think at this point right now, you asked us to make a decision what we're going to do with these people right now that are in limbo. And I want to get off of this because we need to move on. We've got 18 pages of agenda to get through.
So what motion are you making then, Mr.
That we let the 2 programs that Tracy and Ford stay as is until further discussion and finality can be made. That way they can continue. And if we're going to make a decision, we'll have to put it into the 12-13 budget. Because if you're asking that we implement in January, you're right, that's wrong. We'd have to do it the following year.
So is the motion then for the whole for the upcoming school year?
To leave it as is. That's just me. So, you know, that's my recommendation. anybody?
Well, that was the recommendation I originally made, that we leave that
As is.
portion of 707 as is for the 2011-12, and the following contract year for that those agencies
Yeah, those two schools.
would be implemented in 12-13.
Everybody understand that?
Yes.
Is that a motion? Is there a second on that? Can we do that? It's not on the agenda.
So we have to open it to public comment.
We have to make public comment on it.
Did the motion
We
get
did second.
seconded?
Is there a second on that motion?
Could you read the motion, please, Mrs. Schaefer?
I just put in allow Tracy Brooks to stay as is for the 2011-12 school.
Right, right.
Okay. Second.
Discussion from the board? Public comment on this? Public comment on this now.
Mr. President, the
Yes,
board
sir.
has, Drew Anderson, 611 Broadhead Street, Easton.
Thank you, sir.
The board has already given itself clear, unequivocal direction on this matter in policy 707, which is still before you. And that says, no pay, no stay. And it's my understanding that neither of the two people has paid. In effect, they're squatting. Therefore, you have no alternative but to follow your own policy. Your contract with your superintendent says she shall implement policy. Your policy says you shall follow policy. In effect, you have decided for yourselves unequivocally the correct direction to take. If you choose to change your direction, that's okay too, provided you change the policy. Now, there are people who want to debate that $100 should allow you to stay in Easton forever. I think anybody who takes that position is disingenuous as a board member. You're here to serve the board and the educational community. And if you read the entire policy in its broader context, it is $100 per event. And no one has challenged that except one board member who thinks it's a free pass forever. Now, you can debate that one, and I can see a hair of debate, but I think it's disingenuous for somebody to sit over here and take that hair of debate. You leave that to a bunch of Philadelphia lawyers at $150 a second at billing rate. They need to pay. There's only one real question. Are these nonprofits? And I frankly can't find them as nonprofits. I've gone to the Pennsylvania Corporation Bureau, and I've gone to the Charities Registration Bureau. And I did want to ask Mr. Kish later on the other comment what his sources of information were. Because Little People's Country Club Incorporated is a registered fictitious name, at least when I found it. And Lehigh Valley Children's Care Centers is not a nonprofit.
It's a not.
And Pennsylvania uses a different nomenclature than does the federal government. And we can get awfully confused. But it's a simple question. Are they nonprofits? Mr. Kish, you've done some research on this, I'm sure. Do you remember your sources of information?
It's against the board policy to question.
Right.
Right, okay.
But I do have those sources.
Okay.
Anybody else? Discussion on this? Public comment is over.
Can I just make one comment about Lehigh
Please,
Valley?
before we vote, so I want to move
Lehigh
on.
Valley Child Care is a not-for-profit. It's not a nonprofit, it's not-for-profit. And the director of that agency emailed us all the information, and I think also sent us each a letter regarding that. So it's a not-for-profit agency. The other agency that's used by Tracy, I'm not sure.
All right, with that, we have a motion, and there's discussion. Read the motion one more time.
Allow Tracy Brooks support after care programs to remain as is for the 2011-12 school year.
Can I have a vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
No.
Okay, we said she's the only one opposed. All right. Let's move on. Revised school calendar. Motion to approve. Yeah.
Motion.
Second. Discussion.
Can we ask for no snow?
You're funny. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, okay. Class of 2011, motion for the approved attached, all, can I have a motion?
Motion.
I'm getting tongue tied.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? C, field trips. Motion.
Motion.
Second.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, down to new business. Team travel request from Mr. Kritzak. Motion. This is for the wrestlers? Wrestling team. Motion.
Motion.
Second. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Pat Fisher said no. Acceptance of the resignation of Region 3 School Board member, Mrs. Bellotti.
Motion.
Second.
Second.
Discussion, shouldn't be. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Setting a date for the special meeting for Region 3 interview candidates, which would be June 23rd, 2011, 6:30 in this room. Motion. I'm sorry, July 22nd.
First.
21st.
Damn, I can't read, excuse me. July 21st, 2011. I'm just looking at her and I'm looking at the bottom. Motion, there's a motion, there's a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? July board meeting on executive session.
Motion.
Second. Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 I'm going too fast for my executive secretary. Oh, computer's not working fast enough for me. Evidently you got caught up with me.
Oh, my God.
Okay, everyone, the D,
This is not really good, 'cause when I-
advertisement for Region 3 vacancy. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are you guys paying attention?
We are. We're multitasking.
That scares me.
It's
Discussion. All those in
doable.
favor say aye.
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 Those opposed? Okay, 2011, 2012 lunch price increase. We're ordered introduced by federal government.
And PD.
NPD?
NPD.
Okay. Motion.
Motion.
Second.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're going to new business with buildings and grounds. Bid request, partial roof replacement. Motion.
Motion.
Second.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Buildings and grounds financial matters. Motion.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we need to get Dr. Volcano on the phone because this is his thing. And after that,
What's the next one after that? These ones. These ones.
Dr. Volcano, are you there?
Yes,
Okay, you had this put on the agenda.
yes,
Okay. We were at new business shredded contract.
Yeah.
Dr. Volcano wants us to reconsider, so you have to make a motion.
yes. I will make a motion, we reconsider the shredding contract.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Okay, I'd like to explain why. Last meeting, when we went over it, and I voted against it, I did not realize that this was concerning maybe a ton of paper or more. I thought this was daily shredding. Some of these are from EIT, the Eastern Income Tax Office yet, and these are old payroll records. They must be destroyed, and we can't, there's no way we're gonna destroy them in our shredders unless we ruin all our office shredders. So Marie looked into getting them shredded in big shredding trucks. Something we have to do, otherwise we could be sued if that information gets out. So that's why I'm changing my vote, and I hope that we get 5 votes to do this, so we put ourselves out of harm's way.
Thank you, Dr. Volcano. Anybody else in discussion with that? You have to understand, these are some people's personal files with Social Security numbers. With that said, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed?
No.
Roll call, please.
Fisher? Yes. Mrs. Hess?
Yes.
Mrs.
Salzberger?
No.
Mrs. Ellison?
No.
Mrs. Mandarino?
Yes.
Mr. Riley?
Aye.
Dr. Volcano?
Aye.
And Mr. Meyer?
Yes. It passes.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you,
Fine,
Dr.
great.
Volcano. Yep, we got 6.
Okay, 6, okay,
There's
thank you.
another,
You're welcome. Hold on a
All right,
second.
bye now.
Hold on, Pat.
you, that was the motion to reconsider though, wasn't it? And the next one is to actually approve the contract?
Yes.
Okay, so do you want to leave him on the line?
Pat, still,
Yeah.
we got still online, Pat, you hear me?
Yes?
Okay, now we have to vote on the contract.
Okay, all right.
Okay. Motion to accept the contract and go.
Motion.
Yeah, I.
Hold it, Pat. Motion.
Yeah, I'll
Second.
move that.
Okay, second it. I knew you were gonna move it.
Okay.
Discussion? No discussion? We'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed?
No.
Roll call again.
Swisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Hess?
Yes.
Mrs. Salzberger?
No.
Mrs. Ellison?
No.
Mrs. Mandarino?
Yes.
Mr. Riley?
Aye.
Dr. Volcano?
Yes.
Mr. Meyer?
Yes. Contract. Where you have the contract.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Volcano.
It passed.
Yes, it passed.
Okay, thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
All right, I hope you don't have too late of a night.
Thank you.
Okay, you
Bye.
take care.
Okay, let's move on, to an earned income resolution. Motion.
Motion.
Second. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Changes to, in Cobra Administrator. Motion.
Motion.
Second.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor say aye.